So today, what we're going to do is we're going to go over, these are the slides that I used at quite a lot of conferences and webinars and things last year to tell a story. And we're going to pick part of that story and do a deep dive into it, right? So the story is all about ducks and eggs. And I don't know, jump onto chat. Please tell me if you do not. In fact, let's do it the other way around. If you know what I mean when I say ducks and eggs, right? Give me a quick quack in the chat. Oh, we got some thumbs going up. Excellent, good stuff. We got a few hearts coming up. We got a nice little quack in there. Fantastic. So for the uninitiated, for those who haven't had a chance to play with my ducks yet, the idea of the ducks is that, a friend of mine was presenting his project to CEO of one of the world's biggest oil and gas companies. And, he was doing the usual thing, right? He's geeking out. He's talking about his Gantt chart and his earned value reports and all of these wonderful things that we love to talk about. And the CEO stopped him and he says, Roberto, I don't care if you've got a boy duck or a girl duck, right? I don't care about your project methodologies. I don't care about all this stuff. All I want is eggs, right? I just want the value. So tell me about the value. Don't bore me with all the eggs and that stuff. So from this, right, we can kind of conclude that all the executives want are eggs. And so as a profession, the PMO profession, right, our job is to maximize how much egg we give to the business.
Right? And eggs are getting more and more valuable, right, Stuart? They
really are. We were laughing about that in the green room. I'm not sure we're going to bring some of those jokes into this forum.
Well, I'm going to bring one in right now to share with everyone here how this whole duck story you came up with has kind of ruined me. I was out Christmas shopping a few months ago, and I saw a little I don't know, it might have been like a little coaster or something, and it said, "Dear autocorrect, it's never duck."
Excellent. And for the non-native English speakers out there, if you go and write that one down and think about it later on, you'll get it. And it really is never duck. So one of the things when I'm presenting this is that I'll say something crazy like, "Yeah, our job is to double the strategic impact from the portfolio." Right? That's what we're here to do as a profession. And people kind of look at me weird at that point. It's like, hey, double? Really? That's not possible. And so the next slide that comes up is this one, right? Where I put Mike's beautiful face up there. He regrew his beard, by the way, specifically for today so that we'd all recognize it. Otherwise, we'd never recognize you, right, Mike?
Somebody actually said that to me once. Like, I see some guy on the LinkedIn profile with facial hair, but that doesn't look like you. It's like, really?
Excellent. Well, so the funny thing about this slide is that when I reached out to Mike and said, "Hey, Mike, give me a couple of case studies that I can use as a validation point." I think I was presenting at the PMI's Global Summit or something, and he sent me a bunch of case studies, and these case studies had 4x increase in flow, 5x increase in flow. I'm like, Mike, I can't use that. Right? Nobody's going to believe that. So can you send me a few tamer ones? So these are Mike's failures that we're looking at right now. These aren't even the good ones. And so, I've talked about this stuff so often that I thought we just had to get Mike on a webinar so that we could hear from the master, right? So what we thought we'd do is I'll kind of share some of the way that I talk about this stuff. And I, most of what I know, such as, insofar as I know anything, most of what I know, I've learned from Mike, because he's really, top of the game when it comes to all things around theory of constraints, critical chain, in terms of project execution. Mike's the man.
And Stuart, real quick on this.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to get to that point. And I spent probably the first 20 plus years of my career having the same reaction that you said you get quite often, thinking that's not possible. You know, we PMs can't possibly be that underperforming that there's so much room to improve that it could be double or better. That just doesn't make any sense. We'd have to be so incompetent for that to even be possible. It just can't be possible. And so when I finally had to face up to the fact that quite a bit of improvement at the portfolio level is quite possible, it really forced me to rewire my entire brain. It took me it was like a 6-month painful process to open my mind to the possibility that much improvement was actually realistic.
Well, so here we go. Let's start with a bit of a story then, Mike, before we jump into this one. How did you get into all this? Because a lot of this stuff really is not intuitive. Even if you've read the goal, right? It still isn't intuitive.
It was all just a series of serendipitous events where I just kind of fell into one career after another and began learning and assembling knowledge from, you know, my time at NASA, trying to get space systems in orbit, becoming a software engineer, and kind of living the agile revolution in the early days, and just always kind of having this curiosity about, you know what, I've lived through so many failures, and many of those are attributable to me, so also quite humbling, right? But hey, I can learn from these failures, and you know what, there must be a better way. So that's sort of the organizing theme of my whole career trajectory, is there must be a better way. My issue is I'm rarely intelligent enough to actually figure out what that better way is. So I just read voraciously and learn from others. So I was very lucky that I had quite a few amazing mentors that were patient enough with me to take me through and help me rewire my brain.
Awesome. Well, that and to be honest, that's that underlines one of the things we were talking about in the green room before we opened up, which is that you know, all the people who, you know, jump on webinars, stand on stage at conferences, you know, we've all learned from other people, so again, I'm going to suggest and encourage you all to jump in with questions and make this session as interactive as you can, because Mike is offering himself up today as a resource so that we can all learn and get better at this stuff and get smarter. So the message here fundamentally is that yes, it absolutely is possible to double or better the flow of projects. So let's start off, Mike, maybe with a case study or something. Just tell us about a customer. You know, what does it typically look like when you walk through the door for the first time, and then what does it look like when you leave?
So honestly, some of the biggest successes I've had were the simplest, and probably did not require much of my help or support, and was something that was readily available to the client, even had they never met me. They just didn't know it. And so it's almost embarrassingly simple, but I'll share it. We humans have a very common tendency to overload our systems. You know, if you're familiar with the holiday in the US, Thanksgiving, where we, you know, celebrate with a big feast, there's a term we have called Thanksgiving eyes. You just want some of everything. It just all looks so good, but it's probably more than you can actually handle, at least handle in a healthy way, right? Yeah. And that's the same with executives and organizations. I want more done. I want more eggs. So if I want more value delivered, I guess the way to do it is to launch more initiatives, right? Because all these initiatives, these projects sound great. I want them all done. And yes, I'm well aware of resource constraints. All executives understand those concepts, but I don't think they understand the difference between keeping everyone busy as possible and getting as many results as possible. Because not only are those two different things, they're actually in conflict with each other. You can't have both. If you choose everyone being as busy as possible, you will create a traffic jam. And so the typical scenario is my PMs have lost their zeal. They no longer know how to keep a fast cadence. We're getting big and bureaucratic and lazy around here. I want you to whip everyone into shape. And I say, well, without even knowing anything else about your organization, I can tell you with 99% confidence that you have overloaded your highway system and now you're wondering why everyone's late. So deload your highway system. And again, we all know this, right, from sitting in traffic, but it's harder to see in our organizations, right? How congested our project portfolios are not so easy to see, like traffic might be if you're like in a helicopter flying above the highway, right? Or certainly sitting in it. But the PMs who are sitting in it, they feel it. And they know that, like, okay, well, I can only get 20% of Joe and he's not available till next Thursday. And then Joe's sick next Thursday. And we try to muddle through without Joe. And then we wonder why we're so much slower. So basically, unless you have people standing around kind of like in a relay race, ready to take the baton, you will not get the fastest possible execution. So that's very counterintuitive. Like, wait, you want me to have people standing around? Yes, but not for no purpose. They're standing there ready to take the baton, right? And they're warmed up and they're trained up and they've drilled on the baton handoffs and they're ready to go after maximum speed here, right? And if they're over finishing their high jump or some other event and we have to wait for them, well, we're going to have a much slower time. So it's very simple in concept, but counterintuitive, right? Because it challenges core assumptions like, if I want more done, I better launch more initiatives. That's one. And also, the sooner we start, the sooner we finish. So that assumption is a real tricky one because, like the traffic analogy, if I know there's bad traffic out there and I want to be home by 6 p.m., well, I better leave by 4:30 or whatever. But the difference there is I don't control that system. I'm a victim of it. Organizations do control their portfolios and they're not victims of it, or they don't have to be anyway. So literally, I just say, cut your projects in half. And they, of course, ask, why half? I say, I don't know. It's a big number. You might need to cut by 80%, but 20 probably won't do. So put half on hold, redeploy the resource to the other half, and you will get twice as many done this year. And it's really that simple. I'm almost embarrassed that I have to send an invoice just for that.
Should never be embarrassed to send an invoice, Mike. But okay, so there's a couple of questions. Let's make you earn it today. So the first one is, so we're talking about increasing ROI or flow or whatever you want to call it, right? How do you actually baseline that? Because at the end of the day, to declare victory, we've got to be able to measure. So how do you create the baseline?
So usually, especially large organizations, they almost always will have some sort of system where they have, charge codes for projects and timesheets and all that kind of stuff, for better and worse, right? So usually, I could say like, well, okay, how many project charge codes did you decommission last year? And they can go into their system and run a report and tell me within 5 minutes usually. And if they don't even have any system like that or any discipline or whatever, usually that's because they're a startup or a scale up and they can count them on, 2 hands, right? It's okay, you got 10 done last year. How'd you like to get 20? You go, oh, but everyone's so maxed out around here. Everyone's already so stressed. There's already so much overtime. I was like, right, how about we reduce all that too? And then again, they often will look at me with disbelief, but there's a reason they called me in the first place, right? There's a problem with the status quo and strong motivation to improve it. So I just remind them of that, and then just say, well, it might not work, but you won't know until you try it. And if you try it and it fails, you're going to learn some very interesting things about that failure, and you're free to fire me if it fails. I'm the consultant. I'm supposed to get fired at some point, right? But every time I've gone and done that, it either worked really quickly and built momentum for more, or it didn't work and that gave them amazing insights into what could work. Like, we were sure this would work, it didn't, why not? And then that's, I've never seen a case where a client needed more than one try to get it right. Sorry, more than 2 tries, right? Well, more than one failure, right?
Yeah.
The second try is, they never need. It's always the first try, and never worse than the second try, I guess.
So in the event, in the chat, people are talking about, the fact that some execs don't realize that there are constraints and that those constraints are causing problems. So how do you make that visible? And I've got a little story about that, but I'd love to hear your take first. How do you get their attention, and how do you make it visible that this is causing a problem?
Well, usually, again, if they've called me, they already know there's a problem, or there's at least some pretty big missed opportunities, frustration, all of that. And often they will have already tried something like, well, we tried sending all the PMs to training, or getting them all PMP certified, or we'll have an Agile transformation and get everyone trained up in Agile stuff and try following the Scrum guide or something. And they may well have gotten some improvements from all of those, but it's almost always very incremental, and sometimes they don't get any improvement at all, and it could even get worse. Because again, until you set things up for flow, none of that stuff matters, right? Or it only matters at the fringes. And oh, by the way, I have quite a few. I'm a proud Agilist. You can see the word Agile in the subtitle of my book there. And I lived, like I said, I lived the Agile movement in the 90s and the early aughts. But again, the best methods can easily be squandered if you're just stuck in traffic.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. So what I'd like to do now is just sort of jump forward a little bit and start to tell the story, and come back to the traffic jam analogy for a second, because there are several ways that you can get your execs' attention on this. One is just to show them, right? So there's a chap in Wales who was really struggling, and his execs were just coming and saying, look, here's a project, just get it done. Just get it done. Find a way, just get it done. And he happened to be on, Laura Barnard was launching her book. He was on one of the launch calls, and I got him to join and got him to tell the story. And Laura gave him some great advice, which was basically just next time that happens, just show them your resource allocation and the projects to which everybody's allocated, and ask him which project you would like to take the resources from in order to do this new thing.
Great, love it. How'd that go?
Beautifully. The exec in question just kind of went, oh, I see. No, we can't stop any of that other activity. Okay, so you'll just have to wait. Yes, okay. Right, it can be that simple. It really can. Storytelling is a good way.
And on that scenario, if they say, well, we're not going to stop anything, we'll just stop starting new things, and we'll wait for the current traffic jam to slowly clear before we get things really flowing again. I say, okay, well, that's how you double your ROI in a year or two. I thought you said you wanted to do it right now. Right. So you got to make some bold decisions now if you want big improvement. And by the way, it reminds me of a story. Go ahead. Sorry, Stuart.
Yeah. I was just going to say, it reminds me actually, Mike, when you say that, of our first ever conversation. So Mike was working with a client, and he kind of thought that prioritization might be important for this particular client. And he rang me up. I remember I was walking the streets of London at the time. Not in any kind of dodgy revenue earning way, but just kind of, I was walking back from a meeting or something. And this arrogant SOB came on the call, and he's like, look, the customer wants prioritization, but I'm not sure I need it. I know it's important, but I'm not sure I need it. I'm like, what do you mean? He said, well, I can make projects go so fast that they can just do everything. Right. And to which I responded, great. So you're just going to do the wrong projects faster. Nice work. But from that came this kind of realization that, hey, there's a guy here who's claiming to do something that everyone else thinks is just mad, right? And what can we learn from that? And I think over the intervening years, we've learned a bit from each other, hopefully.
Right on.
Mostly Mike teaching me, I have to confess. But the point is that to do all of this right. So asking someone to cut half the portfolio. Gets a heck of a lot easier if we actually understand the relative value of those projects, right? So this is the analogy that I kind of use. Many of you will have seen this before. So I am fully expecting lots of perfect answers in the chat, please, as we go through this, right? So here's a road, and so why do we build roads? What's the point of building roads? Ashok, you're not allowed to answer because you've heard this too many times. So why do we build roads? Jump into the chat. Someone give me a quick answer. To get from one point to another. To get what from one point to another, Randy? That's a good answer. What is it that we're getting from one point to another? Somewhere to store traffic cones. You know, I've never had that answer before. I like that. Whatever you want to get to an endpoint. Okay, yeah, I quite like that answer actually, Randy. That's good. People, good, like that. People.
And I like Gregor's answer too.
Where was Gregor? To get to the goal, absolutely. So the goal, you know, we build roads to get people and goods from A to B, right? Not to get cars from A to B, to get people and goods. So the people are the value. The cars are like projects, right? It's just the vehicle that takes the value from one place to another, right? And delivers the value to its endpoint. And then the road is like the constraints that we have, right? There's only so much road. So 0% utilization of the road. We've got an empty road. How many people are getting to their journey and getting to their destination right now? This is going to be very chat intensive, folks. So just keep your fingers out there. So how many people are getting to their destination? Everyone who set out, right?
Oh no, Emil was correcting his previous comment. That's all.
Oh, okay. Actually, that is quite a funny answer. Everyone who sets out gets there, right? Nobody's setting out. So how many people are getting to their destination?
I think people are refusing to respond because they're embarrassed that you'd even ask the question.
I know. Well, obviously there are no people getting to their destination. So what do? We add some cars.
Ones who do not have EV.
We got a punchy group in today.
Well, Gregor, I will have you know that I've owned nothing but EVs for over a decade, and I always get where I'm trying to go.
Absolutely. Whether it's 2 wheels 4 or 4x4.
Off-road, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. So we put some cars on the road, right? So we're running at 30% utilization. Cars are whizzing along, loads of people getting to the destination. Everybody's happy. So what do? Well, we put more cars on the road, obviously, because we want more people to get to the destination. So we add more cars, and eventually, right, we get to 100% utilization, which of course looks like this. So the key question is, how many people are getting to their destination now? And the answer is not many. Yeah, it's probably not none, but it's a small number. You'll get some people through. Those motorcyclists will sneak their way through somehow, right? And you'll get the odd car sneaking through, but not many people. So
and also, Stuart, I also add that in most organizations, certainly the ones I grew up in and found success in, is because I figured out basically how to cheat. I figured out how to like put a strobe light on my roof and a siren so that people thought I was an ambulance that had to get through. And I would just, force people to the side and plow through.
So when I lived in the States, my secret was Cadbury's chocolate from the UK. I would bring Cadbury's chocolate back every time I came back, and I would hand it out to all the developers. And
bribes work too. Yep.
Bribes absolutely work. So anytime one of my customers needed something, it got done top of the pile every single time. I'm not proud of it, but there you go. That's how the world works.
Yeah. So, by the way, that was another humbling moment for me, realizing that I thought I was this fantastic PM, shining star. I got promoted faster than all my peers, and I realized that all my successes were basically cheating. and it came at the expense of the other projects and the other people.
There you go. Which is why we need PMOs, by the way. That's one of the reasons that we need PMOs.
A good PMO.
Yeah. There you go. A good PMO. Fantastic. So let's turn this. Let's convert this into something a bit more business-like, right? So the vertical axis here is the amount of business value. Horizontal is your resource utilization rate. So low utilization, you're not delivering much value. So you add more projects, right? And the execs say, that's good. Let's add even more. So you add some more projects. And somewhere around here, something really interesting happens, right? Well, two things really interesting happen. The first thing is that the execs wake up and they say, well, actually, we should be going for 100% utilization, right? You can't do better than 100% utilization.
And by the way, if they're paid on billable hours, that actually is appropriate.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point.
If they're paid on actually value delivery and getting things done, then that's terrible.
There you go. Nice little fact there, Ashok. Thank you for that in the chat. So the first thing that happens is execs wake up and they say, hey, we should go for 100% utilization. Second thing is that you start to get resource contention, right? So that guy who's running in the relay that Mike was talking about a few minutes ago, he's still doing the high jump or whatever it was that you said, and he's not ready to take over the baton. So you end up running a slower race, right? So you start getting resource contention, but execs just keep saying more, and so you load the team up, and you're getting less value, not more now, right? Because there's resource contention. So I've been doing this little schlep, and most organizations that we encounter, by the way, are way out here. They're beyond 100% load. There was one PMO I spoke with recently. She was mandated by the leadership team to deliver 120 projects. And I asked her, how many did you actually complete? Would you like to have a guess, Mike? Have a guess.
Throughout the course of a year?
Yeah.
40.
No, right order of magnitude. 20. 20. Right. So the other 120, all the effort that went into those other 120 was completely wasted.
Because they never averaged what Ashok said and I said, right, we were close.
Yeah, exactly. So now this curve, you draw this slightly differently because you draw it based on project flow rather than value flow, but it's the same curve. So this curve has a name, right, Mike?
It's a flow density curve.
Cool.
And it's from physics. It's part of the natural laws of how things flow and how they don't. In fact, oh, by the way, one of the things that all my clients are always shocked by is when they look at a curve like this and they see that today they're at 15% of 50, I guess, on business value delivered, or $15 million or 15 whatever's. Right on. You know exactly where I was going with it, Stuart. That's indeed. Only as good as when they were just starting to use their resources. It's no better than if 80% of their capacity was just sitting idle.
So let's make that really human for a second, right? So if you're over here and you're on the project delivery teams, what does life feel like? Right? It's not nice. I mean, Mike's been in that position and yeah, sucks. Thank you. I like that. One word, succinct, very clear. Mike had hair before he was in that position, right? So this is not a good place for your people. Never mind for the business, right? Over here, what does life feel like for the people? Well, oddly enough,
boring.
You got it, Mike. Yeah, I mean, your initial reaction is, "Oh, that'd be brilliant," but no, you'd be bored. You'd be bored. People don't want to be sitting here, right? They want to be up here. They want to be in the productive zone. So the answer is clearly don't load your people all the way over there. Right? I'm gonna have to figure out how to delete all of that now because Zoom has moved everything. Oh, there it is. Hey, excellent. Fantastic. So the moral of this story is that I guess to make that happen, to put yourself on top of the hill, you need to stop some work, And that, you could just throw darts at it. Mike, there was that guy down in Brazil. Do you remember that one where
I do.
The CIO was trying to get by our TransparentChoice prioritization software. Mike was supporting them, and he went to the COO, and the COO, you know, I'll delete the expletives from the sentence, but he basically went, "You want priorities? I'll give you priorities," and just took a pen and just went.
Yep,
Right,
I'll be back on Monday with priorities. Go.
Absolutely. And within 2 weeks, the VP of sales was banging on our door. Actually, it was on Roberto's door, saying, "I can't get anything done. I can't hit my goals, and you know they've cut all these projects, and
all my initiatives got undercut."
Yeah, and I can't deliver anything, right? So they cut some stuff. So projects are going to go faster, but they're not necessarily moving. They're not necessarily the projects that are moving towards their goals.
And you know, Stuart, this ties back to the story from when you and I first met, where I just said, look, you know, why waste all this time on prioritization when you could just be busy getting stuff done at double the rate or better? And that was born out of, I knew what I was saying was only half baked, right? But it was out of frustration, and it was the same frustration that CEO actually felt. It was like, I'm tired of spending all this time, energy, and capacity arguing over which projects get prioritized over which other projects, and all the politicking and silliness that just gets us nowhere. And I'm just going to put a stop to it. And of course, that creates its own negative effects that you like the ones you just described. So obviously, you know, if that's the best we can do, okay, fine. At least we have priorities, and that's better than not having priorities. But obviously, we could do much better than that, and that's why you and I have partnered more strongly ever since that conversation. Because you can get good priorities quickly, and in a way that actually honors everyone's you know, legitimate perspective, right?
Absolutely. And you know, the PMI data says that 20% of projects are so badly aligned with the goals of the business, they should be stopped. Right? So if we could just eliminate those 20% of projects, right, not only does that mean we're putting ourselves up here somewhere, but also the curve has gone up because we got rid of the rubbish, right? We took the trash out, which means the stuff we're left with is better.
It's more valuable.
So, more valuable. So just doing that has the potential to massively increase the amount of business value that you deliver. So now on here, it talks about AHP. So TransparentChoice, one of the things we do is obviously prioritization software as part of the journey. And Mike, you've used that once or twice. What's your experience?
Again, it's I had learned AHP actually in graduate school back in the 90s and used it to buy my first house because my wife and I just couldn't agree on anything. Right? So I knew it worked. I knew it worked, you know, with two people that are trying to respect each other's perspectives and find some solution that was a good one for both. It didn't really occur to me at the time that the real value was in the conversations that it enabled us to have. And you taught me that, Stuart, right? Like, yes, there's a lot of math and formulas and fancy things going on with AHP, but the reason that all that math exists is because it's trying to honor everyone's valid perspectives and bring harmony to appropriately divergent points of view. Like, it would be really strange if we all had the exact same point of view. In fact, why would you hire me if I had the same exact point of view of every other executive in the room? Right.
Right.
So
that's what
marketing will have.
We've got ChatGPT for that.
Exactly. Yeah, marketing can and will and should have a different perspective than finance. And yet we need to find some way that honors those perspectives that helps the organization bump that curve up to the green like you just showed. So it's that harmonious, like bringing harmony from disharmony, honoring divergent perspectives without steamrolling over someone and just basically turning it into a battle where someone wins and someone loses. You know, that's the way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and so I've got a confession to make at this point, which is that this chart is oversimplified, right? And the reason I say that is, you know, the idea is cool. The reason I say that is that we don't have one resource type. We actually have multiple resource types. We've got different skill sets. You know, if you're running an IT portfolio, it would be your developers, your testers, your architects, etc., your DBAs, and so on. And each of your projects draws from those pools of people in different amounts. So figuring out how to put yourself on top of the hill, you know what resource rate you're looking for, right? And by the way, you know, overall, so this curve is actually plotted, Mike. I don't know if I've ever told you this. So this is not a random curve. I actually sat down with the queuing theory equations and plotted out what this curve would look like using those equations. So you know, if you look at the queuing, right, the wait time really takes off once you get past about 80% utilization within a system. So our trick is to try and balance, find a portfolio of projects that maximizes value whilst not overloading any of those people, any of those teams, particularly. And so we build a bit of AI, special AI, not ChatGPT type AI. It is a completely different algorithm, and it simulates thousands of portfolios looking for the one that puts you on top of the hill, that delivers the maximum value from the resource capacity that you tell it you have available, which is a real game changer and a lot of fun. But the fun doesn't. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Let me make sure that the game-changing power of that is really communicated here, because one of the biggest obstacles I have faced as long as I've been doing this, and I've been doing this for, I guess, 13 years now. When I go into a client organization, they're like, even if they say, yes, we get the concept, yes, we want to maximize for value delivery and not for utilization, yes, we have the political will to put some projects on pause and redeploy resources so that we clear the highway, right, and get it flowing again right away. But it seems like none of my tools can help me do that. I'm kind of guessing in the dark, and I might recommend a tool, and then like, okay, but now we have to learn a tool. We have to populate the tool with a bunch of data. We have to load all our resources into it. We have to have good plans for each of our projects, so we have a good portfolio level view of like a resource histogram across all my projects. And they just said that's too steep of a hill to climb. So I don't know what to do. And so what you've come up with, what TransparentChoice has come up with, Stuart, is a major game changer, because it just asks for a few things, mostly based on intuition. And if you have data on it that you can pull from a report right away, fine, so much the better. But it's not like pulling out your entire project portfolio management ecosystem of tools and replacing with something designed to do this. It's using your best intuition and the best information you already have at hand and just getting started right away. So I think it's the most important development, promoting a higher cadence of value delivery in 30 years.
Wow, awesome. Thank you for that. Look, I'm blushing.
I'll take an ounce of credit, since I kept encouraging you to do something like that, but I had no idea what you were really doing with the sort of AI simulations that can. Well,
I tell you what, we're gonna get onto the next bit now, which I'd like you to talk us through, actually, Mike, because you probably do it way better than I do. So once you picked your projects, then you want to stagger them. So what's this? What do you normally see people do? Right, staggering isn't really what most organizations do today. So what does today look like?
You want me to say, or are you asking?
Yeah, no, you go.
Okay.
No, you go for it. You go for it, because if you
it's based on the assumption the sooner we start, the sooner we finish. We better start everything right away. Hey, we just got all of our funding approved for the new fiscal year. All projects have money. All projects can therefore kick off tomorrow. And so we basically, by design, create an instant traffic jam. Everything's running parallel, and resource contention is rampant. Frustration and overtime and stress is rampant, and not much is moving.
Absolutely. And what's happening is, because at the end of the day, right, we PMOs, or project managers and the PMO, we want to be we want to be able to turn around to these powerful project sponsors and say, yes, we've started, right? We want to make you happy. So people will often, they'll start project 1 and then move on to project 2, project 3. At this point, we can turn to all 3 sponsors and say, we started, right? They come to the kickoff meeting.
There's some progress.
Yeah, they come to the kickoff meeting, which may or may not be the last time you ever see them, by the way. But they come to the kickoff meeting and you've started, right? So they feel good. They feel like something's happening. So then you jump back to project 1, 2, 3, back to project 1. You hand it on to the next team, same thing, and eventually you deliver your first value all the way out here.
And
right?
oh, by the way, from the point of view of every single project sponsor of these 3 imaginary projects, the white squares are delay.
Say that again. Say that again. That's important.
From the point of view of each individual project sponsor, the white squares represent delay. And oh, by the way, we humans get really good at hiding those white squares. So like if each of those squares, say, is a day or a week, the reality is I might switch between all 3 projects 5 times a day. And so the white becomes little slivers of white that sort of blend in, and now the dark blue is just a little bit lighter than dark blue.
Yeah.
And so you can't really see the delay, but of course it's there.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that's happening here, of course, is that people are task switching, right? So they're so if you imagine you're a resource, delivery resource, and you've got 6 projects, every time you switch, you've got to switch gears. That takes a chunk of time because these are complicated tasks. But it's worse than that, because while you're doing that, you've got 6 project managers coming to you saying, what's the update? Where are you on this task? What are you doing with this? And every time they do that, you got to talk to them for a quarter of an hour to explain to them what's the delay and why is this going to take it a little longer and all the rest of it. So the American Psychology Association did some research that shows that you lose up to 40%, 40, of your useful capacity when you're task switching in complex tasks like project management. And so not only are your people stressed out, not only do we have frustrated executive sponsors because of the delay, but we're also being hideously inefficient. So what's the alternative, Mike?
Have each resource finish the task at hand before they start the task on the next project. Hand it off and then jump, not before.
There you go. Stay on task. So the idea here is that you stagger the projects so that in this particular case, the long pole in the tent is this light blue team, right? So they're doing more work than the dark blue or the mid blue, right? So we're staggering the projects so that these guys are just constantly busy, right? They finish that, they flow down here, they finish that, flow down here. And because now all the teams are rather than task switching, they're staying focused on the task until they're done, you get that 30% back, 30, 40% back, which means you get free projects in here. So Mike.
And I would add, we have not yet shown the benefit of focused execution for a single human brain. Right up top, the two dark blue squares that some resource, if that's 2 weeks or something for project 1, we're still assuming 2 weeks down below just to show apples to apples. So we're saying even if there were no benefit from being more focused, look how much more you could get done. And now imagine that we do know there's real benefit. So it won't be just that free 4th project on the bottom. You'll probably get a free 5th and the 6th one also. And now we've doubled our project throughput. Our cost basis is the same. And that is a tripling in ROI if you do the math.
Love it. And what's more, right? This is where we got our first value. Sorry, over here is where we got our first value. It's hidden by my little Zoom window. Is where we got the first value before. Now we're getting first value here. So let's say this is a project that delivers, I don't know, $1 million of value, just to make the numbers simple, $1 million of value every month. We've just delivered an extra $2 million of value just by sequencing projects.
And oh, by the way, if I'm the sponsor for project 3 and you're telling me you're not going to get started until, whatever the eighth square is, 8 weeks or 8 months later, that might sound terrible because I'm operating under the assumption the sooner we start, the sooner I'll get my value. The reality is, if you wait to start even the quote lower priority projects, which doesn't feel so good to me if I'm told I'm lower priority, or my pet initiative is third priority of these three, right? Dead last for this small portfolio. But look, by waiting 8 weeks or months or whatever to start, I'm still going to get my thing done 4 weeks sooner than I would have otherwise. And again, this is not showing the task switching penalty. So it's actually going to be even better. It'll probably be not just 4 weeks sooner, but maybe 8 weeks or something.
Absolutely. And again, this is something that we've built some really cool AI to do, to figure out what order should you deliver the projects in order to maximize this flow. And Mike, you and I met up last year along with Laura Barnard on the shores of Lake Geneva, I think it was, wasn't it?
Yes, that was fun.
That was nice. And we had a spirited conversation about what really happened was Mike turned to give me some really good advice. And the advice was, Stuart, the first thing you need to ask every customer is, what is your most constrained resource? Right? Most customers kind of know what it is. They've got a feel for what it is. And then optimize everything around that. That's what your software needs to be doing. And I described to him what the software does. And it just brute force solves the problem, right? It just runs through tens or hundreds of thousands of scenarios of different sequences of projects, incrementally looking for better solutions until it can't find a better one, right? It's pretty simple. And Mike thought about that for a minute, and he kind of went, "Oh, I get it. You don't even care which is the most constrained resource. You're just looking for the best solution."
Yeah,
which I thought was a really cool way.
You'll brute force expose it if their intuition doesn't already tell them what it should be.
You got it. You got it. So this is really cool. In the past, right? This is Mike. This is probably where you earn some of your money, right? Is helping people figure out how to do this.
Oh yeah.
And you know what I hope Transparent Choice is doing is helping mere mortals, do that as well.
Yeah, I think it has the power to really revolutionize, like to bring these concepts to the masses, if you will, right? So you get over the tool hurdle and all the obstacles I mentioned earlier.
So here's the biggest question that I have around this, is how do you have this conversation with executives? How do you get them to the point where they understand, buy in, believe that this is doable? Because you are going to ask some of them to delay the start of their projects. So how do you know, from an organizational change point of view, how do you have that conversation?
Yeah, so because the change, any big improvement will require pretty big change. Now that doesn't mean it has to be complex or a complicated change. The concepts could be quite simple, like we've described in this webinar today. But the fact that it really will, tip over some people's apple carts, right, and break some eggs and all of that, right? That's real, and so I've learned over and over and over again that I really need to honor that more and more. That what I'm proposing will be disruptive to people. Okay. Yes, there's a benefit at the end of the road, but the motivation really has to be there. It has to be genuine, and I can't force you to be motivated, right? And so a joke I like to tell is, how many psychiatrists does it take to screw in a light bulb? And the answer is just one, but the light bulb has to want to change, right? And so when I left one client, I was really nervous that I was leaving one client too soon. My contract had ended, the money was spent, they were ready to go on and do other things, but I was nervous that the initial progress they had gotten and the benefits that they were already seeing might evaporate. And so I was in this sort of funny spot of like, yes, I'm proud I've delivered real value here. Yes, I've gotten you through the toughest part. Yes, you've gotten the concepts and you're seeing the benefit, and so that's reinforcing your motivation to do more. but I still, like, part of me felt like, you know, keep me around another 2 or 3 months and then we'll make sure it's all locked in. And of course, part of me is wondering if I was just trying to get more money, you know, for more revenue or whatever.
Yeah,
But
you could buy
really
another
was,
Tesla.
I was really trying to be in service to them. And finally, this one, it was in another country, and not everyone spoke great English. And one woman who was super bright, but her English wasn't stellar, she stood up and she goes, "Mike, don't worry. We will succeed because we want." That was the most eloquent thing I think I've ever heard anyone say.
I love it. I love it. That's brilliant. Well, and to that point, so one of the things that we've done is we've put together a little workshop. I don't know if that's the right word, but we run little sessions, sort of an hour and a half, something like that, to help build the case for change. So it's not a case to buy our software. It's a case for change to reorganize the way that you do things, so that you can start to get this doubling effect, whether you use our software or not, right? That's not the issue. The issue is getting support from the leadership team, from the business, so they understand, you know, what are the things, what are the problems today? What are the root causes of those problems? How can we fix them? How can we address them? So the questions about, you know, those executives not understanding that there is a resource constraint, great, let's put that in the pot, figure out, you know, what, why, how do we communicate that, and come up with a plan to help you get the leadership team on board to support the PMO to start making some of these changes, or whatever you call the organization, right? Some people call it PMO, some people call it something else, right? But the name's not important. But what's important is that you get to start using some of these techniques to radically, and I mean radically, improve the performance of project delivery within your organization. And that, at the end of the day, is what delivers the eggs, right? That's what delivers the change that you need to deliver the value to the business. So if you would like, Lenora, I don't know if you're still with us, but if you could drop the link, there is a link to book your very own case for change. If Lenora has left us, we will put it in an email to you.
She put it there.
There she is. There we go.
Hey, and I was,
sorry, go ahead,
finish,
Mike.
Stuart.
Yeah, I was going to say, so just go click on there, book a case for change. It's not a sales call. It's about just helping you create the vision for your executive team so that they understand what's in it for them, and hopefully get as excited as we all are. Mike and I could talk about this stuff for hours, by the way.
Sure. And I will add that while this doubling your ROI seems like, you know, in a capitalistic society, that'd be plenty of incentive to just go for higher and higher, you know, amounts of value and more profit and more mission and more whatever. The reality is most human beings are motivated not by the pot of gold, let's say, but by the alligator. It's more like, if I don't fix this quick, I'm going to be fired. And so if you find yourselves having to, you know, in a tough spot in your organization, right, and you're looking to stop the bleeding, but it requires the kind of changes we've talked about, I can tell you that I often go into organizations speaking truth to power, and again, they can fire me or send me out of the room, and that's better than if they fire you or send you out of the room.
Excellent. Mike, can you still hear me?
I can.
Okay,
you just froze, that's all.
Yeah, no. Zoom has completely crashed. I've lost all control over Zoom, so that's fine. But if you can hear me, we'll keep going. Fantastic. So I have just, you know, we're getting close to the top of the hour. So I've got 3 more things I'd like to cover before we sign off. Number one is just another request or suggestion to the attendees. If you know, we've been talking a little bit about the software. If you would like to see the software, just book a meeting, book a demo, and again, it'll be me, or Dan, or one of the team that will take you through that. We're kind of nice guys. We don't really believe in the hard sell, so we'll tell you some stories, we'll show you some software, and see if we can help you. And if we can't, that's super. So Lenora, again, if we'll drop a link hopefully into the Zoom, unless hers is frozen as well.
She just did.
Excellent. So go ahead and get yourself a case for change session or a demo. And if you do it now, you won't forget. That's one of the tips is don't procrastinate. Right. Two other things I want to tick off. Mike, I'd like you to tell us how people can get hold of you, because he doesn't like me saying this, but Mike is probably the preeminent theory constraints critical chain in project management expert on the planet, certainly that I know, and I know quite a lot of people. So if you want to fix these problems and fix them fast, go talk to Mike.
Yeah, I forget my exact LinkedIn URL, but the part where you have your actual ID, it's MB Hannan. I just put it in the chat.
There you go. Excellent. So just go reach out to Mike. Thank you for that. And then the final thing is, I thought it would be great just to hear one last story. What do you consider your, in the context of, massively increasing flow and all that kind of good stuff? What do you consider as your biggest success? Tell us that story briefly.
So it was actually a university, and they were wondering if the same concepts could be applied to helping reduce the dropout rate and really improve the completion rate, right? We're talking about project completions. Getting a student through an undergraduate degree is kind of like a project. And of course, I'd never really thought about it that way before. So I was kind of fascinated that they thought of it, and then they thought of me and invited me in to try and help. And so I knew nothing about academic advising and what causes people to drop out and all this kind of stuff. And long story short, they went after the hardest to serve population. It was first time, like they called them first scholars, right? Because the first people to go to college, like first gen scholars, first people to go to college in their family history.
That was me. Mm-hmm.
And also people that didn't have much money and didn't know how to navigate the financial aid and all that kind of stuff here in the US. And so that community, was like 300 of them. Their completion rate took a while to measure, but they ended up not only closing the gap in the completion rate, but actually doing better than everyone else. Wow. So they created the reverse gap.
Wow, that is
your best
awesome.
chance of graduating is if you were one of the underserved first gen students.
Well, and you know what? Sometimes the solutions are so simple. You would tell me one time about a hospital where they'd sort of they were trying to cut costs or something, and they'd cut all the janitors for cleaning the
orderlies. Yeah. And everything crashed.
And everything crashed. And so it was ironic. You had these $1 million doctors who were not billable because they refused to.
They're sitting there waiting for the OR to be cleaned. Because the $20 an hour orderly was, they didn't have enough of them. Silly.
So it is, very often it's the simple things. And, if this is you, if this has resonated, do reach out to Mike and ask for help, because the experience, Mike's a super nice guy, as you can tell, great sense of humor, but he's also very humble. So he would never say it this way. But when you've done this stuff a bunch of times, you learn to see things differently. So, a couple of years ago, I was describing some challenges in our sales pipeline, and Mike, in 30 seconds, I said, no, you just need to change that and that. Right. So
there are patterns, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was Churchill said, history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme.
I don't think I'd heard that one. That's great.
Yeah.
Hey, Stuart, thanks so much for having me on.
It's been great. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you again soon on another webinar.